Welcome to the Brainz Magazine podcast, a podcast with in-depth interviews and conversations with world-class entrepreneurs, expert coaches, industry leaders, and international celebrities. Get exclusive insight into the world of business, mindset, leadership, and lifestyle with your host, Mark Sefton.
I want to welcome you to the next episode of the Brainz Magazine podcast. And today we have Danny Morel with us. Danny is your guide to awakening your higher self. He's also the host of the #1 spirituality podcast in the USA, The Higher Self. So with some intrepidation, Danny, it's always interesting when I get to interview a fellow podcast host because it always feels like you got to be right on your game, right? How do you feel about being interviewed by someone else when you're the other side of the mic?
Oh, I just first off, thanks for having me. And to answer your question, I just am always just like in flow. I just let whatever comes out, and I'm not really attached to like how it comes out. It just feels more authentic and real that way. Don't know if that's right or wrong, but I just say let's have some fun. Let's have a good conversation.
I think so. I think the most effective podcasts are those that are authentic, which is typically why, from my point of view, I never kind of give people a heads up what we're going to talk about, because I like kind of it to be organic and to let it flow. And obviously you being the same way kind of really, I think it's going to make a great 30-minute podcast.
Let's do it.
So Danny, I want to know, how are you awakening and healing and transforming people in the work that you're doing? How are you actually going about that?
Oh man. Well, first off, to hear that, I don't, it's nothing that I'm doing. It's what they're doing. And it's very important that to distinguish that, because I feel like we live in a world where, there are so many, gurus and teachers and so forth and so on. And which is great, but I find that in most cases, underneath that guru, there is an energy where they need you to like, appreciate, approve, want, and desire them, And that was something that in my journey, I had to deal with. I had to deal with, let go of, and that part of me had to die, because I realized what was really going on was a form of selfishness and ego. And I realized that once I discovered myself, and once I discovered my truth, and once I discovered and opened my heart, I just wanted everybody else to have that feeling, because nothing can ever describe when you finally realize for the first time in your life and your spiritual eyes open that we are living heaven here on earth right now. And I know that might sound straight out of the cuckoo farm. I understand that because some people would say, well, what about everything that's going on? And what about, well, the truth is it'll always go on. It's actually here. Everything that goes on in this world is here to either distract you or be the thing that you pull away from, so that you can see that you can detach yourself from it and live heaven on earth. And so, how do I do it? And how do we all do it for that matter? Is first, we have to work on ourselves. And then secondly, when people come to my events and stuff, I simply just point them back to themselves. Because then that's truth. The truth is we're here to discover ourselves, and we're here to awaken ourselves, and we're here to unravel anything in life that is stopping us from living at our highest potential.
Yeah, I love that, Danny. I think we're on the same page with that, where it all comes back to self, because it's very true that we never get to escape ourselves. We're with ourselves 24/7, right? So it's not like you can just take yourself for a little sleep away from your body, but you're in your own head, and we have to become acquainted with making sense of who we are, right? So how have you gone about maybe awakening yourself, and this the like daily things, Danny, that you do to kind of keep yourself nourishing and knowing more of you?
The biggest thing for me was that I had to, so I'll give you a little bit of my background. I grew up with what I like to call a double whammy. I had a mother whose mother passed away when she was only 13 days old. So then my mom never got like true maternal love from her mom. So then she didn't know how to give it, because love is an energy, right? Love isn't here. Love isn't, pick up baby, feed, bottle, burp, put to sleep. That's not love. Love is an energy that lives inside of you, or sometimes it doesn't, right? And the second thing was my father. My father's father basically disowned him from the day he was born. So then I had two parents who were wonderful, who I know loved me, who cared for me, but they didn't know how to express love. And as a result, I was disconnected from the energy of love. I was disconnected from my true masculine energy from my father, because he was disconnected from his, and I was disconnected from my heart and my feminine energy from my mother. So then what did I do is I, like many human beings, I created a story and I created a paradigm that I would find love outside of me. And I went on to search for love in everything that this world has to offer. Not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying this is my story. And so I went knee deep into power, business success, looking the part. I was the king of the custom suit, the king of the fancy bag. Stupid me. I literally bought a $10,000 leather briefcase. That's a whole nother story. I was the king of look at my car, because I was so weak inside. I was so miserable and so unhappy inside that I had to get approvance and acceptance from the outside. And if you look very closely, that's the state of humanity right now. Human beings today who don't know themselves are so busy trying to get your attention and to get you to approve of them through outside things. It's why we see so many women altering themselves, right? Because the woman who's at peace in her heart is in love with herself. She accepts herself, right? And it's the same thing with the guy. The guy is so busy trying to do the same thing. He does it with steroids for his muscles. He does it with, money and power and big businesses. Not that there's anything wrong with having a big business. It's the energy in which you acquire the business. That's a different story. And through materialism. And so once I awakened, I realized, oh my God, I had created this paradigm with this supposedly perfect, life, but deep inside I was a mess. I began to unravel that and start to understand, like, where did this all happen? How did it all, like, where did this all begin? And that's what led me to discovering me.
Amazing. So often, we hear people come up with excuses or at least give reason as to why they've not done anything with their life. Because often it is quite critical for most that when our childhood has been compromised or challenged, then as an adult, we sometimes, if we haven't done the work, we realize that, well, often we repeat patterns. So because you didn't have that innateness of how to love or how to nurture, because your parents didn't have that, how did you manage to get yourself to a place where you are now able to nurture others, especially with all these like new kind of family that you've created around you, this community of people that are now coming to you for somebody who is conscious, who is able?
I got emotional when you said that, because it's like, I just never thought I would be here. And I don't know, something about you saying that right now. And I guess I don't think of it from that perspective. I just am sharing some truths that I have learned along the way. And I am helping in my messages people to realize different things about, relationships is a hot topic. And so how did I learn about what to share when it comes to relationships? Shit, man, I was the worst freaking guy there was to be in a relationship with. And so I had to unravel that. And now I can tell you, I'm sitting here working and my beautiful pregnant fiance is just reading a book out in the sun, and her job is just to create a baby, and she's free because I'm free, and we're free as a result, and love is able to be expressed within our relationship. And then how did I learn things about money? Was I had to go into it. I had to go into my fear of money, my lust of money, my desire of money, my quite honestly, my toxic relationship with money, how I built a business that, was big, but it was all built from the wrong energy. And that's why I worked so much. And, like today I do way more, but I don't really even work, because money is just energy, and energy is you, and money is just a reflection of the energy that is living within you. And if you could really harness that, and if you could really harness, your true power, life just flows. Life just flows. And then finally was health. I used to be 40 to 50 pounds overweight, and I went to the gym every day at 4:30 in the morning, and my ego and my mind thought, yes, like I am better than you because I wake up earlier than you. That was back then, obviously. And yet my body was inflamed, because the body is just a conduit for your energy and your life source. And so when your energy is off, then your body is going to be off. So especially here in America, you cannot sit at a coffee shop and stare out into the street for more than 10 seconds and not see an overweight person. It's impossible, because the system here in America is designed to cause you to be unhealthy and be overweight, because you're more profitable that way. And so I see all of these things, right? And I see people who are, stuck financially, definitely stuck in relationships, definitely stuck in their health. And then I think, like, my God, like, this is such a beautiful life. And if only people knew that there was a different way. Like, not everybody is ready for a different way, by the way, because most people love being in victim energy. Most people love, being in poor me. Most people love being in that energy because that's the energy that lives within them. But then there's some people that are ready and they want to experience life at its fullest. And I guess my message resonates with them, and I'm not a life coach. I'm not a relationship coach. I'm not an expert. I'm not anything. I'm just sharing some stuff in a way that is resonating with people, Yeah.
I do want to ask you about relationships, because even though you're not a relationship coach, one of the things that I noticed was very much that you humanize, which I like. You take on a topic that's common to man, and then talk about it in a very natural way. So I do want to ask you a couple of things on that. But before I do, I just wanted to ask Danny, we talked a little bit about victimhood. You've shared a little bit about your own start in life. I find that when people go through difficulties in life, they go one of two ways. One is they become empathetic, because I think that when you have lacked something in your life, you tend to be really sensitive of others that may lack that, especially when you've done a lot of work on yourself. Why is it that some people grow in empathy and then actually some become sociopaths? Because I really see, like, we hear that when somebody has been abused, they tend to then abuse, or there tends to be a cycle, because, like, as we see, parents often show us how to live and behave, and we pick up that behavior and then share that. So what do you think is the tipping point that makes one kind of person go down empathy and the other kind of down the sociopath kind of route?
Yeah, well, it's perspective. Like, I'll give you this example. You brought it up. I have seen, witnessed, worked with countless people who have dealt with sexual abuse. And I've been there with them, and I've been there with them in journey as they purge out this energy and they release it. You see it at my event at Awaken, where people are literally just like, they're yelling in agony and they're letting it go. But then you also see the look in their eyes, like the beautiful look in their eyes. You have no idea what it feels like to see a human being, like a beautiful human being who has been living their entire life with this like weight on their shoulders, right?
Mm.
From that sort of abuse, and they're finally able to say the words like, I forgive them.
Mm.
And I now understand, and I now realize, and they see, here's what happens, they see, and all of us as human beings can do this, there is a gift in every bit of pain that we've ever experienced.
Mm.
And the difference that makes the difference is the energy of courage, right? It requires courage for us to look at something that happened to us. It requires courage for us to look at it from a different perspective. It requires courage for us to separate ourselves from it, and to separate ourselves from the pain that we experience, and to allow ourselves to slowly let go of that trauma and that trauma energy that we've been living with. And it's not easy. It's not easy. But I will tell you this, I will tell you that when that happens, a beautiful new life is begun. And it's a life where you're no longer a victim to something, you're the victor of it. And then what you want to do is you want to go help other people who have also maybe experienced it as well. So to answer your question in short, it's courage. It's the courage to be able to let go. It's the courage to be able to forgive. And it's the courage to decide that you'll no longer carry on that weight anymore.
Love that, Danny. Love that. There's so much that kind of sparks when you talk. We talk about things being organic. I really like honed in on the word forgiveness, because that for me has such a powerful connotation. And we forgive for the benefit of self, and not to say what somebody has done to us is right, because often it isn't, right? That's the whole point of forgiveness. Yeah. It's for self.
Yeah, I tell this story all the time, but I really, this is why at Awaken, one of the major components at the end of my event is the mother and father wound. Because it's essentially, it's this was going to take way more time for me to really explain this, but our life, who we are and how we live is simply a reflection of the love, the energy, the guidance, and the teachings, and the wounds and the fear and the hurt that was created in our relationship with our mother and father as we were growing up. Because when a child first enters the world, right, the child, that soul is coming directly connected from the spirit world, and they're coming directly connected from source. And so those first 3 years of that child's experience here on earth essentially creates in their mind, these wounds or these stories or these paradigms. And so, and they continue through adulthood, right? We get heartbroken, et cetera, through relationships. But what most people don't realize is we attract those relationships, and we attract these people from the energy that we're living in, which was created based off of the wounds that we have when we were a little boy and little girl. So I bring people in a very beautiful way, face to face with their mother and father, and I help them heal that relationship, and then I take it a step further, and I help them heal and recollect to their entire lineage of all of their ancestors spiritually. It's pretty profound what happens. How did I learn how to do that? Well, because I experienced it myself. I remember being on stage. It was, and I was leading people through a beautiful session. And this was about 3 years ago. And a voice clear as day said to me, Danny, you'll never be able to help them become all of what they're intended to become if you don't first become all of what you're intended to become. And I was like, yeah, I know that. And then the next thing I heard, clear as day, so when are we going to deal with your father? And I was on stage. I remember the moment I was like, I'm not messing with that. Like in my head, in my mind. Cause I was like, I don't want to go through this. I have every reason and every right to be mad at him. I have every right to not want to speak to him because he left me and he left us, you know. See, that was me holding on. That was me holding on. And then it took a little bit, but finally I had the courage to let go of that. Not for him, but for me, because I realized that the holding on of all of that energy was keeping me from the life that I could truly live. And in dealing with all of that, the craziest thing started to happen. It's like, as my energy started to heal, my father started to like come around and change himself. And he started to like call me and stuff. And now we have an actual relationship. And the reason why this happens is human beings don't realize is that when we harbor unforgiveness and we harbor this pain, we are energy. So that energy, that vibration is literally vibrating out and it is impacting all of our family. The same way when we heal that energy, it impacts, without saying a word, our family as well. It's a really beautiful process.
Yeah, we hear that hurt people, but then healed people heal people, Danny. And what I wanted to ask you about is that I was doing a bit of research on you, like I do with all my guests. So I think it's always fascinating to kind of find out. And I love to see what you're creating. And one thing that you shared, I really wanted to capture this again, was what is the most powerful words a man can hear from a woman? You know, you talked about how your fiance and yourself, you're going to have your first baby. So congratulations for that. It's really exciting. So I think being a father, again, is going to take, you know, you on another level. I'm presuming it's your first child, right, Danny? Is that right?
No, it's my fourth.
It's your fourth?
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah,
you're
fourth.
like, yeah, so you're an old hat.
It's my first girl. So it's a whole different ballgame. Whole different ballgame.
Yeah, so I would imagine that probably some of this writing is probably because I find that I'm a father of three. I have two daughters and one son, and definitely having both brings out something different in you, right? Now, with that being said, like, what is the most powerful words a man can hear from a woman when it comes to relationally relating to each other? And like I said, heal people. You've done a lot of work on self. Now you're in a relationship that's, you know, full of love and blossoming.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think you're getting this from a post that I wrote, because it came to me one day. Again, it's just from my life experiences, from my relationship with Jen. But what we both realize, and I'll answer this by saying, like, one of our little like things that we like doing together is watching some of these dating shows, like Married at First Sight. You know, and we're just sitting there like my brain like breaks down what's happening, right? And last night I said to her, I said, baby, I said, like, these men just don't understand how to provide safety for their women. And it's because they don't know how to feel safe within the depths of themselves. And it's I think it's a pandemic right now. I really think it is. And so to answer your question, I think that the most powerful words that a woman could ever share with a man is not "I love you." It's "Thank you. I finally feel safe." And women who are highly in their masculine will piss them off, and that will, you can see the comments. They'll get infuriated by that. I'm not saying that a woman doesn't feel or doesn't or shouldn't or can't feel safe within herself by herself. No. What I am saying is that you get to a place in life when you're finally able to get into this beautiful polarity and the energy of relationship. And in that relationship, the man has a certain role and function, and the woman has a certain role and function. It's just the way that we were designed. Right? And women were designed, just look at the act of sex, to open and receive, and men were designed to enter and give and provide, right? Well, when you zoom out, it's the same thing in life. And so Like when we first met, Jen, you could even look at her Instagram. She rarely posts now because she doesn't have to, because she's chill. That side of her, not that it will never come up again, but that side of her is at peace. And she's just finally safe and at peace with her own energy and with the process that she's going through right now in her life, which is of creating our daughter. And as a man, I get to provide that space for her, right? And as a man, I get to provide that safety for her, right? So that I am able to provide the right energy, right? And the right household and the right care and the right nurturing that she needs in order to drop more into her feminine, into the fullest safety of the feminine energy. And that process can only happen with a man. The same way, by the way, the same way. So the feminists can calm down and not throw rocks. But the same way that I could never fully drop into the depths of my heart without a woman. And I get a lot of work, but you know, there's like that tipping point is the surrender to the energy of love and the surrender to the energy of being with that one person that is your heart and your soul's mate.
And Danny, if we were to flip the question, we would get the same answer, or would it be different? What do you believe are the most powerful words a woman wants to hear from a man?
I don't know if she wants to hear it or not, but I can tell you this, is that the one thing that she has done for me, it's the same thing, to be honest. It's that I feel like you see what just happened? I took a breath saying that, like that, like, and sometimes we don't understand how profound like the body reacts to what you're thinking and feeling. But like, I finally feel safe to be who I really am. And that means that I finally feel safe to say everything that I want to say. There's no hiding. Wait, like there's nothing unsaid between us. Nothing. And we were commenting on this the other day. In most relationships, everything is unsaid because you better not say it, because then that's going to start a shitstorm and that's going to start an argument. It's going to start a fight. Why? It's because we are living in our minds as human beings, not in our hearts. And so anything that could potentially be offensive to the mind, right? The mind doesn't want to hear. And then the other person's mind is afraid to say it. And then what happens is people don't realize is, but you know, 10, 15 years of that, your body is holding on to all of these things that are unsaid. That's what drives people apart. So safety for both the man and the woman.
Which, you know, for me is it's a real sense of green flags. You know, we often hear about red flags in relationship, but green flags in terms of safety, great communication, just being able to be you, which at the end of the day, that's what every healthy relationship should have, that two people are fully themselves, right? Like, talk to me a little bit about dating, Danny, before we bring this into land. Like, what's your encouragement to those that are seeking love and a partner?
Yeah, the most incredible, the most profound words I could share with anyone, and I only share this as someone who, the same way that I was searching, Mark, for, you know, love through power and success, and materialism, I was searching for it in a woman. Right? Because I had a story in my mind that I wouldn't be complete until someday I found the one. And so, you know, the deeper you go in the journey of life, the deeper you'll realize that the one is you. The one you've been searching for your whole life is you.
Love that.
And there is no one outside of you that can ever or will ever fulfill you the way you can with you, right? So my greatest encouragement for people that are dating is to maybe meditate on what I just said, so that it hits your heart, not just your mind. Because most of the time human being goes, oh, I like that, that's pretty cool, check, okay, I get that. No, I mean, like, really go into your heart with that, because what will happen is it'll put you in a position of falling in love with yourself. and being comfortable with being with yourself and not needing a relationship. And then when you get into that energy and that space, you come from power, right? You come from power, where you don't need something, but it'd be great to have it, right? And when you can come from power, you can come from clarity, and you can be very, very clear with what it is that you want and don't want in your life, right? Which means you have standards, right? Which most people just don't have. They just don't want to be alone. And then when you have standards, right? Then when you are dating, like, number one, I didn't date that much because my standards were pretty high. But then number two, when it would take 3 seconds, maybe a minute, and I'd know, nah, not gonna work, because I could just feel the energy. I could just tell. And so then I would go on a date, I'd pay for dinner, I'd do my thing, do whatever. But then I would just, and then I would honor my truth. This is a hard thing that men, I think this is the real difference between an aligned man and an unconscious man, is that once you know that there's no future in this with a person, then why would you interchange and exchange your energy sexually with that person? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because now you're just commingling more energy. As a man, especially as a man that I'd like to consider myself as a valuable man, I know that the woman is going to want, potentially some future with me. So why would I set her up for pain and for hurt that way? And these are just commitments that I make to myself, I'm not saying that I was 100% perfect, but I was like 98, 99% perfect. I mean, because I just knew what I wanted,
Yeah.
And I feel that energetically that allowed me the room to call in space for my partner. And then it just kind of, within 2 days, we were talking about her moving here from London and how is it going to work? And I'm older than her and I have kids and all, it all just started because we knew right away, like this was it.
Yeah. It's what I heard from you is, and before you belong to anybody else, you belong to self. And that's really where you need to get to before you can even create the space and manifest like the woman or the man of your dreams. You have to get to that point of belonging to self, right?
That's right. That's absolutely right.
And then out of that is when you're in a position. But I like the fact that you were mindful of kind of what you wanted, because I think that is, and I loved how you said that about like an awakened man, a conscious man versus, one that's really a zombie, and being able to.
It's an animal.
Yeah.
It's really what it is. The unconscious man is an animal. He just wants to stick, in whatever. He doesn't think here. He doesn't think here. He hasn't learned that control over his body. So his body controls him.
Yeah. It's really well said, Danny. Now, before we end, and I want you to let people know where they can find out more about you. Tell us about your events. Tell us about what people can expect from doing an event, and maybe when is your next one, and what can people expect from it?
Yeah. So the name of our event is Awaken Your Highest Self. It's the 3 most transformational, most profound days of your life, quite frankly. It is 6 deep spiritual experiences, plus, all of the teachings that you need in order to unravel all of your limiting beliefs, the limiting beliefs that have been guarding your mind and your heart your entire life, and have been stopping you and blocking you from living the life that you want to live financially, emotionally, spiritually, in relationship, physically. Because truly your life on the outside is just a reflection of your life on the inside. And so, this is the first time I'm ever going to say this, but we will be in London, in Wembley Stadium, by the way, April of next year. So amazing. if people just want to, keep in touch with us on Instagram or sign up on our newsletter on our website, dannymorel.com. when the tickets are announced, they'll have the ability to do so. I think it's going to sell out really, really fast, just because we're transitioning from this space right now where like people are really starting to like gravitate towards the message. And it's the first time we do anything, overseas. So I think there's people coming from the Middle East, from Europe, from the UK, all over the place. So it's going to be exciting.
That's amazing, Danny. That's going to be great. And that's April next year.
April of next year. Yeah.
That's awesome. Really exciting. How do people find out more about you? Where do you like them to kind of like engage with you, Danny? And maybe give us one final thought, just from, you're very much in tune with self. So if there's something that's like burning that you feel like you just want to share as a parting thought or impartation, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. Instagram is my funnest. Like I'm normally there commenting, interacting, helping people. So Danny Morel there. And my final thought is that, life and the system that we live in is always going to find a way to keep you distracted. It's always going to find a way to keep you in fear. It's always going to find a way to keep you in worry and doubt. The truth is that if you can quiet the noise and disconnect yourself from it, you'll start to realize that life is really beautiful. And you'll start to realize that there truly is nothing stopping you from having the most abundant, beautiful life you can imagine, other than the stories that you have inside of yourself and other than what you allow to stop you. And that process of like removing all of that, it takes courage, but everything you've ever wanted in life is on the other side of fear. So that'd be my message.
Love it. Danny, thank you so much for joining me on the Brainz magazine podcast, and excited to watch your journey and keep making the waves that you are. It's been lovely to have you on.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was fun.
Thank you for joining this episode with me, Mark Sefton. I hope you've really enjoyed it. Feel free to leave us a positive review on iTunes, and I look forward to welcoming you back to the next episode of the Brainz magazine podcast.